Dave, and this is my very first time doing stand-up comedy. And who knows, maybe my last. It all depends how this goes. But I really do appreciate you coming out tonight and being a part of my very first audience. Another thing to let you know about me is I am a married man. And as I was afraid of this, I see some disappointment in some of your faces. But don't worry, it won't last long. It'll fade quickly. Okay, great. I know in my relationship with my lovely wife, I know I'm married up. I have another question for you. In your relationship, whether you're dating or whether you're married, do you think your spouse or the person you're dating is dating or married up for you? Go ahead and raise your hands. You think they are dating or married up? Go ahead and raise your hand. Don't be shy. Come on. Now, the fun thing is some of you are in the same couple and you both raise your hands. And you're going to have some interesting conversations on the way home. You're welcome. I happen to know a lot of therapists and counselors in training. So if you need relational help, come see me afterwards. And I can give you their names, but let them know Dave sent you because I do get a small kickback. And then that way, if this comedy thing doesn't work out, I at least have a plan B. So as I said, my wife, I definitely married up, and for my lovely wife. And one of the ways I married up is she is much smarter than I am. In fact, the other night she says, we're sitting on the couch, and she goes, "Hey, you want to have coitus?" And I'm like, I don't know, we just had dinner a little while ago, and I'm really not that hungry. And she goes, "But wouldn't you like another meal?" And I said, "No, I'm still pretty full. I feel a little bloated, a little grumbly in the tumbly, but it doesn't have coitus have mushrooms in it, and you're allergic to mushrooms, so that's not going to be a good thing. You'll be racing me for the bathroom." And so she gave me that look that she only learned after she met me, and slightly bewildered and confused. Turns out coitus is not food, it's sex. And those of you who laughed already knew that, and some of you just learned something new, so at least you'll walk away with that little bit of knowledge. My wife is a French professor at a local university, and I would tell you the name, but I'm not supposed to, so I'll just tell you the initials are GVSU. She is a French professor, and so of course she is very fluent in French. She is fluent in English, of course, and she also knows a lot of Russian, some Spanish, and some Arabic. And so she chose Arabic and Russian just because she said, "Those sound hard and I want to learn them." Me, I know English good. And I do also am pretty proficient at the big Latin. So thank you for holding your applause and respecting my time limit. A few years ago, I got to go to France with her, and it was an amazing trip. And before we went, she thought she would try to teach me some phrases and some words in French, so I could talk to the people like she's going to. Do you think I retained any of it? No. I will answer in French. No. Also turns out to be a French word, so maybe I'm bilingual. She tried teaching me on the plane, on a train, all the things, and it's like my brain is Teflon, and those French words hit, and they would slide right off. No impact at all. Oh, and did I mention this was a study abroad trip? So we had 10 students with us, and guess what language they can all speak? French, very good. The brave young woman in the front gave it a shot, and she was right. The rest of you are too timid. You're like, "I'm not going out." So anyway, we're out there, and I'm the only one who doesn't know the language, and so I've never felt more like a child in my life. And those of you who know me, you know that it's not an infrequent feeling for me to feel like a child. So we would be there, and the longer we're there, obviously the students keep speaking more and more French because that's why they're there. They're kind of getting into the rhythm of the culture, and I'm standing over here, and I don't know what the hell they're saying. They're just over there talking French, and it's a good thing I didn't wander off, because I'm pretty sure if I had, they would have found me dead a couple days later, clutching a stale baguette and wearing a beret. I don't know why the beret, but there you go. So we would be standing in a circle, and they're all talking French like, "Oui, oui, je dois." That doesn't mean anything. That's nonsense. And they were speaking actual French, and I'm to the side, and I don't know what they're saying. And my wife turns to me and says something in French. And I respond and go, and she looks at me and waits, like, are you going to answer? And I'm like, honey, you said that in French. I don't know French. She's like, oh, yeah, that's right. And she turned back to the students and said something in French to them, and then they all laughed and threw cheese at me. And later I told her, I said, that hurt my feelings. And she said, that's just the French way of showing affection. It kind of tracks, actually, you know, it kind of works. So going to a restaurant, also a difficult, challenging thing for me, is I go to the restaurant and pick up the menu and everything's in French. Thank you, very good. Now, because these are students in training, we're not going to restaurants that have English on the menu because they want them to learn. It makes sense. So I go there and I'm like, she's like, what are you going to get? And I'm like, I don't know, this? And she goes, no, that's icky. You won't like that. So, okay. She goes, you should try this one. I said, okay, great. I think the French people actually put prank stuff on the menu just for Americans. Just to see if we're dumb enough to order it. Does escargot sounds fancy? It's snails. But if you put enough butter on those things go down really well. It's actually better. But I do think the French people are like, oh, we'll see if these Americans will eat this. Oh. That's how French people talk. So anyway, I've got the menu. And I'm trying to order, and my wife's helping me to pronounce. She goes, I want you to order for yourself. I'm like, okay. She's like, in a little bit, a man's going to come over and he's going to take your order. And I'm like, I know how restaurants work. I get it. And she's like, okay. So she's helping me, breaking it down into child-sized bites. And she's now, I want you to go, you guys, ew. You guys all say, ew. You got to pucker your lips more and feel the spirit and the depth of your soul, and then you'll say French. Say it again, ew. It's so much better. You'll get a grade from my wife later. So the man comes over, I order my food, I do it correctly, and the food comes out, and everyone's so proud of me, like a child taking his first steps. And then later, the waiter, and it turns out the waiter's name was Garçon. And I didn't, apparently, like every waiter in France, their name is Garçon. I mean, what are the odds? Someone should really look into this, it's very strange. The waiter comes over and he gives me a coloring book and some French crayons. But they wouldn't work for me. Well, to be honest, they wouldn't work for anyone because they were on strike at the time. That's a French joke. See, because French people strike a lot. So anyway, my wife warned me. She said, hey, if you're going to do things in French, please be careful. Because my wife likes French stuff more than anybody I know. And there's a word for that. Depressed. I'm just kidding. It's a francophile. But I bet I have seen more French television shows, movies, songs, and all the rest of you combined. I'm not boasting, I'm asking for sympathy. We've seen some really good stuff. But my wife said, please be careful when you speak about French stuff, because it's important to me, because a lot of times I will make disparaging comments about the French culture, you know, like a good husband would. So, anyway, they mentioned this is my second marriage, but thanks, you guys have been great.